Hi, guys. It's Ryan Fowler here with Teresa K, Inner Masculine Live. It's our Friday show. Every Friday, I'm inner masculine, Teresa's inner feminine. And I love your perfect smile. Look at that. That's amazing. Anyways, every week, every Friday, guys, me and Teresa are together because it is great to have both the masculine and feminine perspective. And Teresa is one of the highest quality females I know. So she's on the show. And today we're going to talk about safety, trusting yourself, trusting your power, your intuition, and how that relates to safety. Because so much of what we do, both as men and women, when it comes to business, relationships, um, wanting to have an exceptional life, there's a lot of people who hold back because of safety concerns. And there could be physical concerns, but also, emotional concerns. People get into relationships and get wrecked, divorces, bad relationships all the time. And that is that is a safety issue that keeps a lot of people held back, not getting into relationships, people with avoidant attachment styles, things like that. But also, I'm in another country now. And there's safety concerns with that. But we're talking about safety from an inside perspective. Of course, any time we're going to do something where we're taking risks, we want to mitigate as much risk as possible while still going after and getting what we want from an outside perspective. But if you don't feel safe on the inside, if you don't trust your ability, your power, your intuition to stay safe, you will avoid taking certain risks that is going to make you ultimately miss out because of these feelings of not being safe. So Teresa and I have had similar instances because we both grew up with trauma and feeling not safe. And so we're going to share a little bit about our experiences feeling not safe and how we overcame it, because Teresa, you're living a great life. I'm getting what I want in my life, which required us to, you're a businesswoman. You had to strike out on your own with business and, also dating, relationships, all of that. It's important to gain some perspective on this and also just to get a healthy inner world so we do feel safe. So, Teresa, go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe give your take on this topic so far.
Sure, absolutely. And I giggled because you said, and I forget exactly the words you used, but something like, on Friday, we're inner masculine and inner feminine. And I was going to interrupt you and say, only on Fridays?
You're inner feminine 24/7. I'm in it, but we meet together once a week. Yeah.
Yes. So it
Cool.
was just funny the way it was said. So
Yeah.
I hope I'm an inner feminine and outer feminine.
You're pretty darn feminine, so
Thank you.
yeah.
And you're pretty darn masculine. So, and you do have your feminine side, sure. We all do, right?
No, I have
We
no
all have
feminine side at all. What are you talking about?
we all have our feminine, masculine sides, right?
Okay.
You don't think so?
I can agree to a point on that, sure.
Yeah. So I've got a few ideas I'm going to throw out there in terms of risk and safety, and then bring it together.
Okay.
And they do sound conflicting ideas, right? I
Okay.
think feeling safe is an illusion. Life is risky.
Yep.
Everything we do is there's an element of risk.
You
Even
cross the street.
I'm sorry?
You walk across the street.
Totally.
Get hit by a bus.
Getting out of bed in the morning, when we're younger, it's not as risky, but ask an old person, an older person, someone who's physically not that fit. There are so many back issues that began with getting out of bed the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And people are like, I can't move. I'm in so much pain because I got out of bed the wrong way, right? Everything is risky.
And what happens if you don't get out of bed?
There's a risk
and
you
there. Starve.
You either starve or your body breaks down. I mean, there are people that live in bed, like cannot get out. There's risk everywhere. So safety, the concept of safety is an illusion. True. And we have to take risk in life. We have to, if you want to accomplish anything at all, we do have to take risk. And there are many different forms of risk. There's financial risk, there's emotional risk, there's physical risk, every form of risk possible.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. There's risk to not taking risks.
Absolutely.
Then you live a life full of regret. That's the risk.
That's the risk, right?
And that can suck in its own right.
Right. I should have. Why didn't I? I could have. I didn't. Those are regrets. And there are sayings that, quotes that basically say, the biggest regret you'll ever have is not taking a risk or not doing something that you wanted to do. As a young girl, I remember my family, and I think this is something wired from a cultural perspective, but in my culture, which is Spanish, there is a lot of fear ingrained in us. There's a lot of control. Parents, grandparents, family control children with fear. That's probably true in many cultures.
Shame with my family, but also fear. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And
there
was shame too, but there was so much fear of, if you do this, this is going to happen. This bad thing can happen. And it was a way of
don't talk to strangers.
Don't talk to strangers.
They'll throw you in a van and then cut you up.
Oh, I grew up in Miami. There was a lot of that. There's a lot of, kids that go missing and they get shipped off to South America, never to be seen again.
Yeah, it really happens, And
it does happen. Absolutely. But there was fear. It felt like 24 hours a day. Everything and anything that was outside of what they felt comfortable with, there was so much fear mongering around it. And so I was, as a young woman, a teenager and going to college, and I was wired to be curious, and I loved to explore and I loved to travel. And at the same time, I was scared to death. And what that brought on, and the example I would give, or the analogy I would give, is like you're driving a car with 1 foot on the pedal and 1 foot on the brake.
Yeah.
How far are you going to get that way?
Yeah.
Not very far. And I still figured out a way to get ahead, but there was so much anxiety that I had to overcome.
So you were traveling, but you had a lot of anxiety while traveling?
Oh, a tremendous amount of anxiety. So I still did what I wanted to do with the chatter, with the monkey brain, with the anxiety. You can't enjoy the journey that way.
You're doing it, but you're not enjoying it as much because of
all that chatter, all that anxiety, all that panic, all that. It was exhausting.
What do you think was behind that? What was going on in your inner world?
The programming. The programming that life is dangerous and everything that you do is dangerous. Oh, and if I by chance disobeyed my parents, the programming, because I was by nature a very good girl. Like my role in my family was to be the good girl and to be the obedient girl. And if I was doing something that my parents probably would not have approved of, the anxiety level went up drastically. And my parents' voice was in my head saying all the bad things that were going to happen.
Yeah. What was the punishment? You're not a good girl anymore. What happens? Now, as we know, subconscious mind, we're kids. We're observing the world around us. We're trying to figure everything out. And when things happen to us, we interpret it and we form beliefs. So you had some beliefs from your childhood. If I'm not a good girl, something bad's going to happen. If I go out into this dangerous world, something bad's going to happen. So is it okay if you share maybe what some of those? Because you got to go to the worst case scenario to really see what the fear is about.
And you know what? You're doing a session right now.
Yeah. Just imagine a waterfall of light, a beautiful waterfall.
I'm in the client seat right now, right?
That's right. Just close your eyes, take a deep breath, count 5 to 1 as you slowly breathe out.
So the messaging was, it all depended, but what was really funny too, Ryan, when
Mhm.
you're the good girl, when you're playing that role, or maybe not even that role, when something bad happens that your parents warned you about as a child and it actually happened, that reinforces even more that programming
Yeah.
that life is dangerous. And if you disobey what the family culture agrees
Mhm.
with, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And as a woman, a young girl that wanted to explore the world and do things, and was I doing things wrong or bad or whatever? No, it was just outside of what my parents' comfort zone was for them. There was a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of anxiety, and the belief was something bad is going to happen to me.
Yeah. And for our audience, anxiety, we have the fight or flight response. Some call it fight, flight, freeze. It is literally, anxiety is literally tied to the flight response. It is a survival response designed to keep us safe. But what happens is, oh, my good friend Brent Caldwell. Brent, I hope you're going to be on the show tomorrow. We have a Saturday show with all the certified hypnotherapists. Brent is one very good friend of mine. So anxiety is tied to fight or flight response. It is literally tied to survival. And isn't it interesting that we can get anxiety about emotional pain to avoid emotional pain? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I was telling you before the show, Teresa, that anxiety, fear, it's all about there's a potential threat here. It doesn't mean something bad will happen, but it means something bad could happen. And our brain, the lizard hind part of our brain, this ancient part, fight or flight response, when it sees a threat, it gives us fear and anxiety to say, don't do this, avoid this, stay safe. But if you go through life with massive anxiety, you're not going to get ahead, because you got to take risks to learn and grow and get what you want.
You know, it's really interesting. You're talking about the reptilian part of the brain.
I'm going to go into the tribe dynamic after you speak too, but go ahead.
Yes, and I have a comment on that as well. My son was sharing with me, he's rock climbing or boulder climbing, I guess, in an indoor arena. And he was sharing with me, there was a man, I forget his name, who did and I don't know the language, but climbing around the face of a mountain without any harnesses, nothing at all. And he's broken like an amazing world record. And it was an amazing athletic feat. And for those of you who know bouldering, I know you're going to know this guy. And there's actually like a Netflix documentary on it. And they did a study of his brain. And his brain showed the amygdala portion of it was either very underdeveloped or very overdeveloped, where he doesn't feel anxiety in doing very, very dangerous things, where the rest of us have a normal brain, a normal reptilian brain, where, and maybe some of us develop a hypersensitive brain based on parenting and based on our environment, where I think mine was hypersensitive and I had to learn to calm down my brain. Just thinking about a young man climbing the face of a mountain without any harnesses, without anything at all.
I wouldn't do it.
Would you do it?
Hell no.
Hell no. I think about
I don't see the payoff. I'm at the top of the mountain. Okay, nice view. I'm tired as hell and I could have died. The payoff's not worth it for me. It's worth it for him. Great. If it's worth it for him, that's awesome.
And thought of it, literally,
different.
my hands can start to sweat. Like just thinking about it gives me anxiety, right? And my son was like, you should really watch the documentary. I'm like, I can't. I just thinking about it and watching him and thinking that could be my son climbing the mountain. I'm not even thinking about climbing the mountain. I know I'm not going to be up there, right? So I have no interest in going down that road. But the other thing, and this might be a good segue to you talking about the tribe, the word culture. Break it down. I love to break down words. Is the word cult, right? The family culture, the group culture, the tribal culture, right? We are wired to act in a way to keep us in the culture, in the tribe.
To preserve the cohesion of the tribe. Boom. And it's tied to survival because if we were on our own in the wilderness 20,000 years ago, we'd probably die.
Right.
So humans group together in tribes to facilitate survival. But if you do things to disrupt the cohesion of the tribe, it actually is a threat to survival of the tribe. Or it could be a threat to you if the tribe casts you out because you went against its rules. Now they kick you out, or they murder you, or they're like, we don't like you. You get half the food everyone else gets. And
Exactly right.
and so what I want you, I hope I didn't interrupt you. Do you have more to say?
No. So it was that whole concept, that going back to the analogy of one foot on the brake, one foot on the pedal, right?
Yeah.
And I graduated with a finance degree. I moved to DC, lived in downtown DC, got a law degree, accelerated. Living and working in downtown DC, like I had a lot of anxiety, and I still made things happen. But living life with that much anxiety is not fun.
It sucks. I used to have massive anxiety all the time too. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I, should I go out late, be out late by myself as a woman, downtown DC, going to law school, wanting to get licensed to practice law, like all those little micro decisions that we make day to day. There was anxiety around all of it. It was not fun. And
how much harder did that make things to do things?
Oh, terribly. Such a waste of energy that is not productive. And Ryan, I think most people live this way.
Yep, a lot of people. It's a matter of degrees, but a lot of people have more anxiety than is beneficial for them.
So tell me, Ryan, in with your technique that you've developed, and tell me what you've seen with your clients over the years. How do you help your clients reduce that anxiety where, they're able to perform up to a certain level because obviously they're able to afford your services, but it's that analogy, one, a pedal to the metal and a pedal on the brake, like, or a foot on the brake and a foot on the pedal. Like, how do you help them overcome that so they don't live with all that chatter, all that anxiety, all that stress?
Yeah. And I'm gonna share a little bit from my background, just a little, and then I'm gonna go into that because it's all related. I'm gonna go into the tribal dynamic too. I used to have anxiety all the time, like constant low-level anxiety. Is that how it was for you?
Yes.
And then there were certain things that would spike that anxiety way the hell up there. And that was fairly common. It would get spiked. That was because I grew up in a household where there were psychological, emotional threats, not physical threats, but psychological, emotional threats that can come out of nowhere all the time, happen a few times a day. I'm just minding my business, and emotional threat, meaning some sort of shaming. Why didn't you do this? I can't believe you did this or that, or going to find something to show to the whole family and humiliate me, So what happens is when we're children and we're growing up in this world, we don't know anything when we're born into this world. Our fight or flight response, that's a hardwired feature of our brain. But when we're born into this world, we don't know what should trigger that hardwired response. We're born in this world knowing almost nothing except a little instinct. And so as we are living in this world, we're learning what is safe, what is dangerous. Who am I? Who's my mom? And is my mom safe? Is my dad dangerous or safe? Are other people dangerous or safe? What parts of the world are dangerous or safe? So we have this feature, this fight or flight response built into us, but then we learn what is safe and dangerous according to things that happen to us and how we interpret it as children which is going to tell our brain when the fight or flight response should be triggered based on what we learn about the world as we're developing as children. And if in the world there are constant emotional threats, constant threat of you do the littlest thing wrong, dad's going to lose his shit and blow up. You know, your little, you left a toy on the floor and that was a straw that broke the camel's back and your dad loses his shit, or mom. Or you do the slightest thing wrong and you get shamed. Or you walk into the bedroom and you see your mom on the floor with all these bills in front of her and she's crying because she doesn't know how to pay them. And things happen as kids and we interpret it and we're like, oh my goodness, it's hard to survive. Oh my goodness, there's threats everywhere. I'm threatened every day, constant, you know. Now, some kids, they're raised up in households where their parents are emotionally healthy. They're not shamed constantly. Their parents are maybe affluent. So there's no tension over money. There's no constant criticism. They're a good-looking kid that gives love from their parents. So then they go to school and their other kids are naturally attracted to them. So there's no bullying, you know. So there are children like that. And
I haven't
these
met
children,
too many, Ryan.
What's that?
I haven't met
not very many. But there are some, right?
I don't know that I've met anyone that doesn't have some kind of trauma in their life or hasn't had.
True. All right, true. And I'm talking in relative terms.
Okay. Got
but
it.
I have met these people and I mean, they're great people, but then they're like, why don't you just go out and do what you want? Why are you struggling? What's your problem? They have no context. And I see people like this. I actually gave one of my YouTube shows was about these certain coaches that will just kind of shame and crap on men. And they just don't have the concept that some people are really insecure and get really hurt by like the tough comments. And for them, it's fine because they have self-esteem. They have confidence. You know, they can't comprehend that being harsh on others can actually do a lot more harm than good. You know, so some people are in their childhood, emotional threats everywhere. The threat of being bullied. You know, I've had, it's not very common, but I've had some people say, hey, when I go out in public, I feel someone's going to attack me. And these are kids, maybe they're raised in very dangerous neighborhoods where that actually happened to them a couple times, or they were bullied and beat up and like, you know, bloody nose, or, you know, I think I had one client, a bully broke his jaw as a kid, you know? And so for some people, they get these messages and then, yeah, it's high anxiety, but emotional threats can also make you not feel safe. So going into the tribe dynamic, I mentioned it a little before, but fear is there's a physical threat generally. There can be some overlap, by the way. Anxiety is I'm in a situation where if it goes wrong, I'm going to feel emotional pain, feel not good enough. You know, because I failed, I'm a failure. Because someone rejected me, I'm a reject, I'm a loser. And that's actually at a root level tied to survival, because if you're in a tribe and the tribe doesn't like you, kicks you out, gives you less resources, maybe other guys gang up, other people gang up and kill you in the tribe because you're doing something they don't like, they don't approve of. And hey, if the tribe decides to want to kill you, there's no police going to come along and arrest them. They're the tribe. If the rest of the tribe decides, yeah, you don't get as much food or protection or whatever because we just don't like you, or we're going to cast you out because your behavior is unacceptable, you know. So anxiety and hey, if I fail, I'm a failure. If I'm rejected, then I'm a reject. You take it back to the tribe dynamic from 20, 30, 40, 100,000 years ago. If you do things to go against the will of the tribe or something the tribe will disapprove of, you're going to get emotional pain, and that's designed to keep you from doing things the culture, the tribe doesn't approve of, because being approved of by the tribe facilitated your survival in ancient times. Now, in modern times, people get this toxic shame. You know, toxic shame is like, hey, you're at the bottom of the tribe, so don't challenge the higher ups, because if you start rising through the ranks of the hierarchy of the tribe, they're going to see you as a threat. They might kill you for, you know, rising up, and now one of the warriors is like, oh, my girl has her eyes on you because you're an up and comer, and he's going to mate guard. This is tribal. Now it's not all tribes, but this is some of the tribes, and things like this could happen. So toxic shame in old times preserve the hierarchy of the tribe. The people with toxic shame stayed at the bottom. The people without toxic shame stayed at the top, preserve the hierarchy. It preserved cohesion. Well, in today's world, there's so many things we learn in childhood that from an evolutionary perspective is like, hey, this is going to keep you within the bounds of the tribe, but they don't serve us. Because now if you rise up in the ranks, you make a lot of money, you get more physically fit, you make yourself more attractive, more successful in various ways. There's no one that's going to be threatened by that, not generally. You're just going to succeed more and kick more butt. But this is where, anxiety is tied to toxic shame. People are like, why can't I lose weight? Why can't I, go out into public? Why can't I approach this person and say hi and make a friend? And I have all this social anxiety. You know what I mean? It's literally tied to, as a child, we're like, oh, bad things happen when I do that. Maybe that's going to make me an outcast. Maybe I'll be unaccepted by this person. And it's literally, from an evolution, psych ev perspective, tied to cohesion of the tribe, but we don't have tribal structures anymore. I mean, there are remnants of tribal structures throughout our society, but it's vastly different now. So our evolution of our brain has not caught up with the evolution of civilization. And so now we have all these programs not serving us if we have a dysfunctional childhood where we're learning all these threats. Later on in life, they're not actually threats. We just think there are threats that are way worse than they actually are. Does that make sense?
It does. And I would add that I think the family of origin, the family that you're born into, is a tribe. It's a culture. And we're wired, in order for you to survive as a baby, as a little child, you start getting cues that if you don't follow along, you may not survive.
Yeah. If mom's not happy with me, she may not take care of me.
Right. And
if dad doesn't want me, he may leave.
Even a baby, at the moment they're born, like they've got really, really big eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And the way a baby looks is designed to trigger love from their parents. I mean, it's really fantastic, amazing.
So the parents will take care of the kids.
Because
otherwise the kids die.
Right? And so in terms of love and shame and, the tribe and the reptilian brain, the amygdala, we are wired from the moment we're born, probably before then, right? 9 months, the evolutionary process that unconsciously, I've got to be a certain way in order for my family to love and accept me so that I've got a chance of survival.
That's right. It is the mother and father and the tribe. There's that extra dynamic, and they're both fitting within the tribe, but also doing things in a way so mom and dad want you, love you, and accept you so that they will take care of you. Because as young children, if they don't take care of us, we die. We don't know how to get food resources when we're 2 years old. So it's all tied in. Yep. Agreed. Family as well as tribe, 100%.
Yeah, totally. So socially, the tribes that are out there, I think today there's more and more solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, more independence, more autonomy, certainly. And we still need love and affection and emotional support, even the most independent of us, right?
And we're both pretty independent, but we're both
pretty independent. Yeah. And we know that life is better when we've got connection, emotional connections.
100%.
Right? And so as independent as one might be, there are still tribes and cultures out there that we are wired to want to belong to so that we can still survive. I mean, look at today. We're living in crazy times, crazy times. If you're paying attention, you recognize how crazy it is.
Yeah.
And there's still a want of belonging to a community, emotionally, physically, so that when crap hits the fan, like I'm not totally alone trying to figure all this out, right? You look at these dystopian miniseries, which I don't tend to like them or watch them. I'm actually was introduced to The Last of Us, was told to watch that, and I watched the first episode, and it was disturbing and not my cup of tea.
Did you watch it all? I watched it all. It actually gets pretty good.
It gets good.
Maybe not your cup of tea. I'm not sure.
It's not my cup of tea, and I get the messaging, and I get why my friends wanted me to watch it. Those people are pretty alone.
Yeah.
And
they're in a very dangerous world.
Very dangerous world. And they are hanging on to each other. So interesting. And that's their tribe, and that's their culture. And this dystopian world, it's us against them. And it's fascinating.
There's literally people walking around in our world now that have that mindset, even though we're not in that dystopian world. But in their childhood, they had constant threats, and that's what that's what got in their subconscious. And now as adults, even though that, you leave your toxic family, if you had a toxic family, you now don't have those threats, but your subconscious mind is set. Between age 8 and 14, the programs start to get set in stone, unless you do hypnosis or EMDR or psychedelics or something to reprogram trauma, get it out of you. It's going to stay for most people. Most of these subconscious beliefs are going to stay with them till the day they die, more or less unchanged. For most people, most or all of those programs will stay the same. So if as a kid you learn the world isn't safe this way, I'm not accepted this way, which means I'm in danger of being kicked out by the tribe, getting less resources, being abandoned, etc. As an adult, you're not in that toxic environment anymore necessarily. You're out of the toxic family of origin, but your subconscious still thinks there's threats everywhere.
Right. How much better, Ryan, is life today for you than when you were dealing and swimming in the cesspool of anxiety?
Oh my God. Dude, I'm living a great life.
I know you are. I know.
You're
kicking ass, doing what you love, serving humanity, and you're light. When we first met, there was a heaviness to you.
That's right. We met, 12 years ago? 15?
We met a long time ago.
We met before I found these techniques to clear my trauma. You notice the difference, huh?
Well, I loved you then and respected you then, and I can contrast the before and the after, Ryan, right? And I have for many, many years as I witnessed your evolution, right?
Yeah.
And there was absolutely a heaviness to you, and now you're like, oh yeah, I can do that, or yeah, I could do that, or like you picked up and left to Mexico, right?
I quit my $190,000 a year job. I quit my $190,000 a year job. I invested in a roofing company. I moved to Mexico learning Spanish and launched a YouTube channel. Went to full-time hypnosis. Although I've been doing part-time for 4 years, on myself for 11 years almost. A lot of change. And this is like in the last 3 months.
And I'll change your friends, your center of influence.
I've gotten rid of toxic friends a while back. Yeah.
The average of the 5 people you hang out with, and I'm not talking about income, I'm just talking about quality of people.
Oh, I have the best friends.
Have leveled up drastically.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you deal with this crap.
Yeah.
It just is. And the best is yet to come. This is a process. You have not arrived.
Yeah, it's a process, and there's still things to upload. I know there's like probably 2 programs in me right now that I need to clear. They're probably 4 or 5 out of 10, and they rarely get triggered, but they get triggered enough where it's like, I do better without these, 100%. Yeah. But I will say, just to give an example, when I was preparing to move to Mexico, the biggest anxiety is about getting my dog through customs, honestly. But still, like, I'm learning a new language. I knew a little Spanish, not much. I still don't know that much, but I'm getting better. And I would say for 2 weeks before I moved, I had 3 out of 10 anxiety, which, considering what I was doing, now here's the thing: our brain motivates us towards the familiar, away from the unfamiliar, the unknown. That's what that was. That's hardwired. You're going to have a little anxiety when you're going into something new. P-dubs, muy bien, Ryan.
And
Speaking
some
a
people
little.
say anxiety can also, excitement can show up as anxiety also, right? So there probably was an element of excitement because you
There
had
was
been
some of
talking
that
about
too.
moving for a year and a half, and
Yeah,
that
but
day was approaching.
yeah, let me tell you, the last time I started up a new business, which was 2003, I was living with my parents, so my needs were taken care of. As far as I had a business fail, I couldn't pay my rent, my car got repoed, moved back in with my parents. While I started up my business that eventually got up to about 190 a year on average. There's higher and lower years, but that was the average. When I started that up, I was physically safe. I had all the food I needed, but my anxiety was probably between a 6 and 8 out of 10 all the time, and it would spike to 10.
Mm.
And now I'm actually from going to a new country. I would say the actual safety level is slightly lower. It's still pretty safe. But my actual risk now, I would say they're slightly higher than back then. I'm starting a brand new business over again. And now once I got here, that 3 out of 10 anxiety, it went away within like 3 days. And I would say my anxiety now is pretty much zero most of the time. I'd say it's a zero, maybe once a week. I'd feel like 2, 3 out of 10, maybe not even that. And so, yeah, the difference, being safe back in 2003, having my food, all that, 6 out of 10 all the time anxiety to pretty much 0 out of 10 except for 2 weeks before. I mean, and what happened is I went in, you've done this too, we both went in, we found these painful subconscious programs in childhood that told us we're not safe. If we make a mistake, we're going to be a loser, a failure, a reject. The tribe's not going to like us. Or we're not safe. Or, I had this program, scarcity mindset. Money's hard to come by. It's hard to survive. I'm going to lose everything. Soon I had this thing in me. Sooner or later, within a few months, everything's going to fall apart and I'm going to lose all my money and something bad is just around the corner that's going to really do me in. I had that. Cleared that. I mean, that's been gone for like a decade. I had these you get rid of these bad subconscious programs and replace it with good programs. And then what happens is you start to trust in your own power and intuition. And we have a supercomputer. Everyone has a supercomputer. Our subconscious mind processes 1,000 times more per second than our conscious mind. And it picks up on people's micro expressions. It picks up on so many things. It picks up on people's elevated heartbeats. It picks up on so many things our conscious mind does not pick up on. And it can give us intuition and warning signs to warn us of real actual danger. If you get your internal world cleaned out and you gain more awareness of this internal world and you connect to it, it actually warns you of many things where there is real danger. And when you learn to trust this, it will actually keep you safe in many, many, many ways. Can you relate to that?
Oh, completely. And those that I think have more trauma growing up or live in an environment that wasn't safe, they have that sense hyper-tuned.
Yeah, but it's like overtuned. Wouldn't you
It's
agree?
overtuned and it's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
And there are gifts there, but it's not ideal to be living that way. And I would say, I think ADD, ADHD is a trauma response for many people.
Could be. Both my brothers, one had ADHD, the other had ADD. Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people walking around today, from young to old, and everybody says, oh, I have ADD, I have ADHD. And certainly one thing is how we're wired in terms of how we live, right? Our phones and our computers and our dopamine rushes everywhere we look. But I think it's also a trauma response to dissociate. because it's
Yeah.
something that, so many people learn to do as a trauma response. And I found that the more that I have cleared a lot of my trauma and a lot of my programming, the more present I'm able to be. And the more present you
And
are,
that does make you safer in reality.
it makes you safer. Safety is an inside job, but you've got to do the work in order to feel safe. It does not come automatically.
Getting your internal world cleared to clear out all that noise. So when there is an actual threat that your supercomputer, subconscious mind, intuition is warning you of an actual threat, clearing out all the noise. So when that happens, you're tuned into it. And then being able to stay present, not dissociated. People with trauma dissociate, like you said. They'll disconnect from reality to disconnect from the pain that's in them. They'll just zone out. They'll daydream. They'll disconnect from their feelings, and it disconnects them from this power in them that actually keeps them safe in reality. I think we're on the same page there. Is that right?
I think so. I have a response for Raduko, and I don't know if I said your name right. Raduku says, having positive things to experience anxiety over and then pushing through it always has felt great to me. And I would invite you, Raduko, to consider that if you didn't have that initial anxiety, you'd have more energy and more resources
to do the great things to get that pleasure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think if you don't have the anxiety, do you still get the great feeling?
That's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
That is a coping mechanism. And maybe it works for you. It's really funny. There was a cartoon a long time ago. This is how old the cartoon is. It probably is 30 years ago. There's a guy sitting on a park bench, and I was telling somebody, I quit coffee. I quit drinking coffee, and I lost my $100,000 a year job, which back then was a big deal. And it's the same feeling when you're leveling up. The coping mechanisms that got you to a certain place, when you're starting to level up, there's an anxiety or a fear that's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to operate another way. I got to where I am today with all these coping mechanisms, and it's served me.
Yeah.
And I invite you to consider, to get to another level, what got you here will not get you there.
To the next level, 100%.
There's another devil, and you need different operating system to get to the next level.
Yeah, we have coping mechanisms for a reason. And as a child, we develop coping mechanisms. Some are necessary to get us through childhood. But now you're an adult, you have those mechanisms that help you get through childhood. They're not serving you as an adult.
Exactly.
They're actually holding you back. I would say, like with Radoku, you can have a mental model saying, hey man, I have anxiety, but man, look at the other side. It's gonna be so great, this accomplishment, and that can actually propel you forward. If it's like that, I don't know if it's quite like that for you, Radoku, but I have had lots of anxiety, and I would overcome the anxiety and do something and feel great. Wow, I accomplished this. I feel so great. I still feel that way without the anxiety. So for me, the anxiety, overcome the anxiety does not diminish the feeling of accomplishment for doing something if there's no anxiety there. Would you agree on that?
Totally. And imagine not having that chatter and not having that stress. When we are
now you accomplish more and get more good feelings for more accomplishment.
More.
Yeah.
And I was told a long, long time ago, it's a marathon. Life is a marathon, and you don't want to extinguish all of your chi, your life energy at an early age. And energy and stress, anxiety eats away at your chi. And so, from a health perspective, a mechanism that your body has set up for healing, which is parasympathetic nervous system, and being in a parasympathetic state versus a non-sympathetic state, that anxiety takes away from your ability to heal your body. So imagine having a state in which you can still enjoy accomplishing things, but doing it from another state where you don't have that anxiety. That's 100%. What I would invite you to consider as possible for you.
Yeah. So couple things from my life. I used to sleep 9 hours a day, probably accomplish 40% less and be exhausted at the end of the day. Now I'm cool on 7 hours, accomplish 40% more, and not as exhausted at the end of the day because the anxiety's gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would also suggest perhaps you were a bit depressed as well.
Oh, 100% manic depression. I had manic depression, and there was when I found the self-hypnosis. I did 100 therapy sessions over 50 years. Didn't get rid of any of the anxiety or other stuff. It did get rid of about 60% of the depression. There was still that 40% junk. I had low level depression almost all the time, and then sometimes it would spike up. Yeah, low level. And man, it sucks.
And
But
it's amazing that you
way
figured it
better
out.
now.
Amazing. What a gift, right?
Oh yeah.
Many, many, many people have not been able to accomplish that. And now you have, and you're helping other people do it. And kudos.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rodoku, maybe that isn't anxiety. Maybe it's actually excitement. That's cool. Totally cool. Anyways, what happened to me is after I cleared this stuff out and just feeling more safe, if you're in I don't feel safe, you're having anxiety, it's draining your energy because you're hyper vigilant looking for threats. That right there drains energy.
Totally.
After I cleared my anxiety out, my income doubled within a couple of years. Depression, anxiety, and I wasn't even trying to double my income; it just doubled. I was just getting more done, and I think also I had a different vibe, and people liked me more, and my close rate on getting new business went up. And yeah, and then then my income eventually doubled again. So, getting away from this. Man, here's some people are going around walking on eggshells, trying to behave a certain way because if they don't do things just a certain way, they will be disapproved of, or the world is dangerous, or some people are like, hey, anytime I get in a car, I feel unsafe, and it does sap your energy.
That was me.
But also I trust my power. Now I used to it used to take a lot of energy for me to date. And I was scared of relationships because I'm like, this girl is going to do something to backstab me. I see the divorce statistics. I've seen my friends go through divorce and how it just totally traumatized them. The women are dangerous. I literally felt that at a low level. And that kept me from getting in relationships or dating more. There was like a 3-year period I hardly dated at all, and there were times I would try and date and I get worn out and I go a few months without dating because I just worn out from all the anxiety, feeling not safe. These women I literally felt deep down, there's something that happened. This woman's going to backstab me. She's going to betray me, because I was raised in an environment where I was made not to feel safe along those lines. So, but now what I've learned, and I think you've learned this too, is because I got connected to my core, learned to trust my intuition, learned that, wow, I have a lot of ability and power. Now I trust my power. It used to be this girl could hurt me. Now it's like, because there are toxic people out there. There absolutely are. But what I believe now is I can go out there, meet people. If they reject me, it doesn't affect my values. So I'm not afraid of rejection. If I start dating someone and this is a toxic person, maybe it's a sociopath, maybe it's a narcissist, I trust myself that I'm going to sniff it out and get out of there and stay safe. So I'm not worried about that now. And so now I just go out and, do my thing, and it's great. Have you seen that in your own life?
Totally. And I'm just so happy for you. I feel so happy for you, Ryan, because you're living a great life, and you're such a great man, and I'm just so happy that this is your life today. And yes, I've seen all of that in my life, and I think that would be a great conversation for our next show.
Is just feeling safe in relationships specifically?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good topic for next week. So how have you seen, because I think like your anxiety is way lower now. learning to trust yourself, your intuition, and your power to stay safe. Is that a factor in you overcoming your anxiety?
Totally. My anxiety came from many different places, but just my physical safety was huge. Like I had so much anxiety around that. And I still, traveled and did a ton of stuff that someone with my level of anxiety probably couldn't have.
How do you think you got through it? You just really wanted that really bad, or what was it?
Because I'm very, very driven.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of me that was very driven, I think just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I pushed through the anxiety to do stuff. And I still had the anxiety. And as I healed different parts of myself emotionally and acknowledged the voices that were in my head were not mine, it really helped a great deal. I had a number of car accidents at a young age. I'm going to make up the number, maybe 5 or 6, between 16 and 21. And
I got in a car wreck and it affected my confidence in driving for probably 2 years.
And for me as well.
I got rear-ended from behind, like really bad. Pushed me through the entire intersection. Yeah. I was rear-ended by a snowplow.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. It does. It messes
at a red light.
It messes with your concept of safety in the world.
It does.
And I've driven in, I've been to almost every state in the country. I've driven in probably every state, everywhere. And some would say I shouldn't ever drive behind a wheel, but sober or not, and I don't drink, so I'm always sober. But I had to overcome every time I got into a car. I felt like I was going to die.
So what is it that
got in the car, and I still drove everywhere. I had to overcome just that. Imagine how much anxiety there was around that. And you wouldn't see the anxiety outside of me. Like if you met me or you were in the car with me, you didn't think that I was thinking that.
Do you have less anxiety about that now? I'm sure you have less anxiety about many things.
I don't even think about it now. Every now and then I'm driving and I'll remember that anxiety that I used to have. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God, that is not my life today.
What did you do to fix it?
Worked on the programming.
Okay.
Worked on emotional healing, on the programming, intellectually, emotionally, somatically.
What kind of methods did you use? Just real broad strokes.
I would say hypnosis. I would say emotional healing, somatic work, acknowledging, awareness of it. Like, oh my gosh, this is what happens consciously. Because so many times we're subconscious to it and we don't know this is what's going on.
Yeah, it's our subconscious that is triggering the fight or flight response.
Totally.
I mean, unless you actually aren't safe in the real world, and then you should get that response triggered because you're actually not safe. Get out of there. Right. But when it's mistriggered, it's bad subconscious programs that aren't serving you. Would you agree?
Right. And it wasn't serving. It wasn't serving me. I was still getting in the car. I was still getting stuff done. I was like still living a large life. I've always lived a big life. But it's that the resources, the resources that were spent on keeping me, keeping my equilibrium where nobody around me knew I was having that anxiety. I was really, really good at keeping it inside. I was really good at keeping it together. Really good.
Your overall productivity is a lot higher now because you're not struggling with this. Is that what
totally?
You're saying? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And women need more rest from an emotional perspective than men. I was always going, like always going. And so my level of enjoying life is so much better on so many levels.
Can you briefly describe what somatic work is? You described that, and I don't think our audience really understand. Maybe some of them do.
So I'm going to look up the definition because you know how much I love breaking down words. But somatic relates to the body. It's different from the mind. And in the body, we store trauma and emotions.
One of my shows talked about the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which is written by a neuroscientist, and it's a neuroscientist. It's been at the top #1 bestseller for psychology since like 2015. It's ridiculous.
One of my
About trauma in the body.
absolute favorite books of all time. And I highly recommend it to everybody.
Was his name,
But I went through that book, and he talks about all these different types of therapies that one can do. And I did quite a few of them. I chased different therapies for healing. And now I don't feel the need to do any of that because I've got tools that we've talked about that work.
So get rid of the bad subconscious programs that are triggering feelings of not being safe, anxiety, but then also learning to trust your core, your intuition, your power. And that's how it is for me. Is that the same for you then?
Totally. And you know, one of my favorite sayings, it's all an inside job. It is all an inside job. And
now, go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
And I know we've got to wrap up soon. But Raduco's got one more question about business money making implications of inner game.
Let's comment on this. I'll let you go first.
So doubling your income or 10xing your income.
Yeah, I quadrupled it. Now I'm working on 10xing it, but
now 10xing it from before, right? I can tell
and we're both successful business people. We're both way up into the 6 figures. So just so you know. Oh, hold on just a moment. Okay. My house cleaner arrived. All right, we're good to go.
So when so many of your resources are being spent on surviving, you can't focus truly and completely on maximizing income. And when you can reserve those resources for creativity, for relationship, for connection, for building a business, for putting systems and processes, for recruiting, for managing finances, of course, your energy goes where your focus goes. You can't help but multiply your income.
Because you're more productive.
You've got more resources going towards that objective as opposed to just surviving. I think so many people use most of their resources in just surviving.
That's right. In most of their internal resources. Yeah, 100%. And it's absolutely that. Like I said, I used to sleep 9 hours a day, get 30, 40% less done because of massive anxiety and be exhausted at the end of the day. I'm less sleep, more productive, less tired because I'm not dealing with this stuff that was draining me.
Right.
It takes energy to deal with anxiety. But furthermore, what I'll tell you is with self-hypnosis and hypnosis, what I do is what I've done for myself, what I do for others is I get bad subconscious programs out. I replace them with the best subconscious programs. Unconditional self-love, belief in your ability and value, belief you have value just for who you are. If others cannot see your value, it doesn't mean you don't have value. It means they cannot see it. That's their blindness. That's their problem. The more we do anything, the better we get at it. We just need to keep practicing, learning, and growing until we get enough skill to get whatever we want. You put these beliefs in your core. Now our subconscious mind is a supercomputer. It's literally, this is neuroscience, has been measured 1,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind, processing 1,000 times more per second than your subconscious. And everyone has a supercomputer. The reason people are not more successful is because the supercomputer, like any computer, will run the programs it's told to run. Most people's subconscious are filled with viruses. You get the viruses out, you put the good programs in, now you have this supercomputer working for you. And what happens is when you have these best beliefs, you not only have self-belief, which actually really increases your motivation. Because if you're like, I want to make $1 billion, but I can never do it. So your brain's going to say, well, it's not worth trying. You're just going to waste all this effort. It's not worth trying. You're not going to want to do it. But if you believe you can get it, and if that's what you want, then your brain's be like, cool, this is awesome. Let's do it. And then your subconscious motivates you towards that. Now, another thing is within the tribal, the whole dynamic with how people relate to each other, if you have deep down self-belief, self-love, self-confidence, people like you more and treat you better, straight up. And I'll tell you, I had a client, this client, I did a session, and 5 months later, his income went from 140 to 200 grand, because he was like, these guys aren't paying me enough. In the past, he didn't value himself internally. Now he's like, I really am worth this. And he found a new job that paid him 200 grand. He wouldn't have done that if he still had this I'm not good enough in him.
Right.
But what he told me is that at his old job before he left, he was in charge of 8 or 9 other engineers. And he would tell them to do things, and they wouldn't listen to anything he said. And he said, after we did this upgrade to my core, they actually come to me for advice now. Crazy, right?
No,
before they would ignore him,
crazy.
now they actually come to him for advice on their own. Because when people see you are a confident, like true blue confidence, people like you more. If you're trying to close a business deal, you're going to have a much higher close rate, because everyone's subconscious is working and giving us gut feelings about other people, giving us, do I like this person? Do I not? And when you have these great beliefs in your core, they just pick up on it. And they're like, I trust this guy. I like this guy. And for me, my job was I got consulting gigs. You know, some gigs paid 3,000. Some paid, I mean, my best one paid almost 100 grand. A lot of my gigs were 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20, etc. If people trust me more, they get my services more. And so it wasn't only that I was more productive, dealing with less crap, more self-belief gets my subconscious pushing forward instead of, you know, being stuck where I am. And then you just get this, like, you can go to my business website from my business I've almost phased out. I'm still taking care of clients, but it's like 95% down. It's pfshield.com. P as in Paul, F as in Frank, SHIELD.com. You can go to the video section and see videos of me from 15 years ago, and my energy is so much weaker. So much. You can
do
go
that.
there and watch it now compared to my energy now. And it's like, why is your income higher? It's like, because people see my energy and they're like, I like this guy. I trust this guy. And then I'm going to pay for his services. And that's all these things together doubled, and then doubled my income again, quadrupled my income over time. So that's what I attribute to it. But I guess that's more or less our show. We're at the hour mark. And Teresa and I actually have to do some stuff after this where we're conquering the world together. So
we're working on a really cool project.
So do you have any final thoughts on cleaning out your subconscious world, so these, you know, you're not worried about being unsafe and anxious all the time, and then learning to claim your power, trust yourself, trust your intuition to keep you safe? Anything else to add?
Beautifully said. I love the analogy. Get rid of the viruses in your software.
Yeah.
You've got a in
your supercomputer. Get rid of
the
virus.
Whether you believe in God or universe or whatever it is, you have a supercomputer capable of amazing things. You just gotta get out the viruses.
Yep.
Thank you.
Get them out and put the best programs in. Now the supercomputer is working for you instead of working against you.
You got it.
And it's a very powerful supercomputer. So that's our show for today. Thanks everyone for watching. Teresa Kuhn, Inner Feminine 24/7. Brian Fowler, Inner Masculine 24/7. Unless Teresa forces me to get in touch with my feminine side, whatever the hell that is. Otherwise, Inner Masculine. So that's our show. So guys, you get your inner world clean. I mean, dude, someone earlier, just real quick, said you guys have the best insights. It's because we came from a background of a ton of trauma and we worked through it ourselves. That's why we know this stuff.
We worked through it with
ourselves, and now we're doing it for others.
With the help of others, for sure. We didn't do
100%.
it completely by ourselves.
Yeah, I found Melanie Tony Evans, Marissa Peers, an influence, Joe Dispenza, you know, these luminaries. I've come up with my own stuff, combining their stuff and my own observations with clients. But, you know, I didn't just pull this out of my butt one day. You know, yeah, you know, we found other luminaries and then put our own spin on it. But Jesper, not to be negative, great show. Ridoku. So that's our show for today. Guys, you really do have more power than you know.